Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 12, Episode 136. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us here today, Steelers Nation. Bit of an emergency podcast. Dave and I are recording this Wednesday evening, so you may be hearing this either Wednesday evening or night or sometime on Thursday because, Dave, some pretty big, significant news. We've been waiting for a long time for an answer on Stephon Tuitt, and on Wednesday afternoon, we received our answer that Stephon Tuitt announces his retirement from the NFL after 8 seasons. So respect that decision either way. Certainly the tea leaves and comments from the organization and teammates seem to indicate that Tuitt planned on returning, but that is not the case. He'll be, as Chuck Noll used to say, moving on with life's work.
Yeah, the speculating about the speculating is now officially over with now at this point. And man, have you ever jump to both sides of the fence and back again so many times throughout this, especially the last couple of weeks, kind of the things that Kevin Colbert has said, and really just as recently, I think at the start of OTAs there to hear Cameron Hayward talk and really some optimism. It sounded like that. It almost sounded like he knew something, but with that said, yeah, one of the big questions that we had throughout this, and back at Notre Dame and finishing up his studies there and all like that. With all that being said, you're still talking about a guy that missed all last season, and you kind of thought that there would have, come hell or high water, he would have found a way to be at OTAs this year, and obviously wasn't. But even so, those are voluntary in nature, and as we said, I think just the other show there, we'll find out for sure come the start of mandatory mini camp there. Well, we didn't even have to wait that long, and it come to find out, I don't think it's just a coincidence that this thing's happening on June 1st, to be quite honest with you, Alex, because if I had to bet now, rearview mirror, look at this right now, I would bet that kind of June 1st might have been kind of the line in the sand date that maybe the two sides had with each other, because that would obviously make sense, right? With get through OTAs, obviously June 1st, you get past June 1st, the salary cap ramifications work differently because in any prorated money past the current year does not escalate immediately into the current year after June 1st. So it made sense to at least let this thing run up until that date if Tuitt was still unsure about what he was going to do on his end. But in the same breath there, the Steelers, you had to think that at some point they had to know, hey, are you coming back or are you not? And I'm willing to bet that once again that June 1st was probably, I don't know if it was communicated between the two sides that I think it was. I think it was communicated. Hey, we need to know by June the 1st there, especially with mandatory minicamp coming, because that gives the organization time to maybe go in a different direction there. You have to think though all along. And if they didn't, shame on them. You're coming off of what happened last off season, right? When you got to did you even get to, when was DeCastro? Was that mandatory minicamp or was that training camp?
No, that was in mandatory minicamp around this time of year when DeCastro realized that they realized his ankle was not going to work, and they released him and signed Trey Turner.
Right. So you would like to at least hope and think that they had in the back of their head that they seriously thought that this thing could go this way. Sure. At least that there was a chance in this. Now, I already see people and not surprisingly, saying, well, man, it's a shame Tuitt didn't let them know earlier so they could have adjusted their plans maybe in the draft or in free agency this past week and all like that. Look, if they were sitting around, if it got to the point where they were thinking that this guy still hasn't made a decision and that he might not until June 1st, then it's on them to have, if they had wanted or deemed that they needed to do something different, I mean, you would like to think, and maybe I'm giving them too much credit here, but you would like to think that even ahead of the draft, that they had at least an inkling of an idea that it might end with Tuitt ultimately retiring there. So, look, they drafted DeMarvin Leal in the 3rd round, right? So, I mean, that's still fairly early for a defensive lineman. I know people are saying, well, they should have taken one earlier than that. Who are you going to take? Really, I mean, if you go back, Dr. Mel posted a link to the good on her for for forcing people back there. If you go back to, and I'll even send this to you, and we'll do this a little bit live now as well too. Send you this link here. Who were you even going to take? Within your first 2 picks of the draft, if you deemed a defensive lineman was what you needed there.
Going all Bill O'Reilly on me here doing this thing live, as opposed to our regularly scheduled.
With
thought
our
out,
pre-production meetings, and look, you're going to do this, and I'm going to say this, and you're going to do that. I mean, I suppose if you're going to go in, look at the people that were on the board there at the 20th pick until they picked again at 52nd overall there, and if indeed you're going to go a defensive lineman who fits from a height, weight, speed, power 5, all those things. It wasn't going to be Devontae Wyatt, right? I mean,
not with his character red flags. I mean, the big name here, and I understand they had very little interest.
Fedarian Mathis, probably, right?
No, well, he was off the board for 52.
Right. I'm talking that was still on the board at 20.
Oh, okay. Well, that would have felt like way too high of a reach to take Mathis in the 1st round. I think he was a day 2 prospect, but I was the name that I think people will talk about on this list is Travis Jones from UConn. He was the guy that really fit well. I understand Pittsburgh, for whatever reason, did not show much interest in him, including not attending his pro day. But if you're asking me if I wanted to rewrite history for a moment, I'm not saying I would do this, but you're posing the question, what were the other options? Travis Jones to me was the best option there.
All right. And where did he go overall at?
76.
Okay, 76. So you could even have had him in the 2nd round, right?
Right.
All right. So that's a good dart throw there. I mean, obviously that's a guy that you would have thought at least, fit, and you would have thought they would have, but they didn't show any interest, I don't think, in him during the outside of the Senior Bowl. I mean, they didn't look like they had much interest in him at all.
Sure, I'm just saying who fit. I mean, I think that guy fit really well. But obviously they drafted Leal. I'm not really too big into trying to rewrite the history books. I do want to read just the back half of the statement that Stephon Tuitt released after the first half of the statement, just announcing the decision to retire. He says, quote, "After the tragic loss of my brother Richard and upon completing my degree from University of Notre Dame, I know I am being called to move beyond the sport of football. I want to thank everyone for the love and support they have shown both on and off the field. And again, want to thank the Rooney family, Coach Tomlin, and the entire Pittsburgh organization. It was an honor and a privilege to play for this historic team. Go Steelers," end quote. And so that finishes out Stephon Tuitt's statement. So again, Hayward seemed to indicate almost to a near certainty that Tuitt was going to return. And so I don't know if Tuitt changed his mind. I'm not terribly interested in trying to figure out what all went into the decision and the timeline and those things. Obviously, the decision is the decision. And so Pittsburgh just now has to move on. I was hoping he was come back on a personal level because I was really excited to see this guy play, such a talented player. That last year he played back in 2020, he was excellent. It was so just, exciting to see it all come together for him health-wise and production-wise. And so I was hoping that he would do that, but of course, respect his decision either way.
Yeah, look, you couldn't help but kind of wonder, man, you get a healthy Tyson Alualu back, obviously Cameron Hayward's Cameron Hayward. And man, if you could get even 80% of the player that Stephon Tuitt was in 2020, seemed like something to really look forward to there. Right. And look, I went all over the map with the way I kind of thought this was going to go for a long time. I thought, yeah, I don't know about this. I don't think we're going to see him back again. And then you get reeled into a comment or two that Kevin Colbert made that really seemed kind of optimistic. Then you fast forward to what really the last couple of weeks, last week or so, the things that Cameron Hayward has said, it really made you feel that, oh, okay, he's just back at back home in Indiana there, finishing up stuff with college, and he's going to be raring to go at mandatory minicamp there. So then you jump back on that other side of the fence saying, man, maybe this really is going to happen here. And now you get to past June 1st here, and now you see the reality of everything. But it was a red flag. It became a hard to ignore red flag when he did not show up at the at OTAs, even though they're voluntary sessions there, for the sheer fact that this is a guy that has missed a lot of time. Mm-hmm. And you'd like to think it, and even Kevin Colbert said we'll see when he gets back on the grass and all like that. Those kind of statements. Maybe Tuitt maybe that was Tuitt's plans, or maybe he had an additional change. Maybe he had a change of heart.
Sure.
Late in the process, who knows? And people are giving. There's a subset still that fans are giving them. Quote unquote hell for this and all like that. And look, I'm not going to try to put myself in that man's shoes of what him and his mom, had to go through and saw, and that, such tragic and all like that. And, things like it, and that can change people's lives, just to make them second guess of, am I doing what I really want to do? Maybe I have another calling here, and all. So I don't begrudge the guy, at all when it comes to that. Sure, you would have, there's going to be a subset to say, man, why didn't he just make this decision earlier and all like that? And, maybe he had asked for time to really, really think this out. I don't know. But the fact of the matter is now is he is retiring. We have finality to all this. It is a shame what all has transpired and him not playing, obviously, last year, and then the team having to restructure his contract, and you have to go through all this time of the speculation and the speculating on top of the speculating just to get to this point. And now you can't help but feel that there's a huge hole in his defense right now, just as there was last year when he didn't suit up.
Sure. As you said, it's good to finally have an answer, at least one way or another. I think ideally you would have known this answer a couple months ago, but you understand you can't rush this guy into a decision. You wanted to be respectful of that time. And I think Pittsburgh at least was operating under some assumption, at least under the possibility that Tuitt may not return. I think that is one reason why they drafted DeMarvin Leal in round 3. Not that it's a 1-to-1 replacement, but, it's going to help, obviously. So that's all you can do is just, thank Tuitt for his time and understand he's making the decision that he feels is best for him and his family. And you have to respect that. And I understand the frustration and angst there was about, not knowing for such a long time until, literally June 1st about what his plans were. But I don't know what all went in his head. I don't know what communication there was with the team about where he was at throughout this process. As long as he was communicating to some extent, that's all you can really ask for, and wait until he's at peace with such a big and weighty decision about what your career is going to look like while you continue to play. And so if Tuitt, I understand if he didn't want to rush into that and wanted to take a lot of time to think about, what his life was like. So I can't get mad, and I will not get mad or say on any of the hurtful or nasty things that I've certainly seen on my timeline today.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, for the people that say, man, if only they would have known 48 hours ago, they could have signed Akeem Hicks. I got news for you people listening on that. That they weren't going to sign Akeem Hicks to any kind of incentive contract similar to the one that he signed with the Buccaneers. That's just, I don't know how many times, even with a new GM at this point right now in Omar Khan, it just is not how they do business with non-quarterbacks. And I don't see that starting with Omar Khan right now either there. So they're not going to sign Akeem Hicks to an up to contract that was loaded with, I think I had right around $4 million worth of incentives and like a base value of of $6 million there, and they damn sure weren't going to sign Akeem Hicks to a flat out 1 year, $10 million contract. So for all we know, maybe they did try to offer him on a 2-year deal or something like that, or a 3-year deal and all. But the deal that he ultimately signed with that Hicks signed with the Buccaneers, if you think that the Steelers could have gave him or we're going to give him that same deal, you're not paying attention. You're fooling yourself. Plain and simple there. Now, and regardless of when they would have known about Tuitt, my whole thing on this anyway is, look, if they had any doubt in their mind that this thing could have played out this way with Tuitt, then I think they would have went in a direction that they saw as feasible if one presented itself to them. In other words, if they found somebody out there that could sign for Steeler-like money and an experienced guy, I think they would have done it by now. But they obviously didn't, and they did address. They surprised. I think they surprised a lot of people even by taking a guy like Liao kind of as early as they did.
Are there any current free agents that you would have any interest in terms of realistic names? Because I know I've gotten that question a lot today.
Look, I see the Larry Ogunjobis out there. I see the name
Eddie Goldman.
Yeah, Eddie Goldman.
Latulele.
And look, Eddie Goldman's more of a nose tackle, I think. So hey, here's what I'm not interested in doing. I'm not interested in moving Tyson Alualu around.
Same.
For starters, that guy belongs over the nose. That guy needs to play that role that he played before he got injured. That's where Tyson Alualu belongs, especially at his age and coming off of injury there. So I'm not interested in that. Eddie Goldman is a defensive tackle, nose tackle, right? So if you brought in him, then you're doing so to play over the nose, I think. So you're still going to need a 4-eye 5 tech. So you're not getting anything, I don't think, I don't think you're making progress by signing a guy in Eddie Goldman. As far as Larry Ogunjobi goes, this is the same guy that agreed to like a 3-year, I don't know, what was it, $60 million with $25 million guarantee with the Bears earlier this offseason, and then he didn't pass the physical. And thus that deal fell through. And this is a guy that coming off of, I think it was a Liz Frank injury, and I think he's still rehabbing from that right now. If last that I read on that, Alex, I don't think he's 100% right now. Are you telling me that you think you can have that guy under $8 million a season? I'm not convinced you can. Maybe you can. But I tell you what, once again, if you're paying attention, they're not going to sign Larry Ogunjobi off the street, making the 3rd highest paid defensive player on the roster and the 4th highest paid player on the team just off the street in June. That's not going to happen.
Mm-hmm. I'm just looking over a list of names.
I have a name.
I know what it's going to be. I'll let you take it though. What's the name you want to go
Nick Williams,
the Sanford man.
Right. I mean, this is a guy that a couple years ago, even up to a couple years ago, had some very impressive snaps. He's a guy you can have on the cheap. He's a guy that knows the system. I think he's still got some snaps in him and all. And I think you bring him in to compete. All right. And if he can make the roster, great. If he can't, fine. But that would be call number one that I make. I think looking at the list would be Nick Williams.
Yeah, I think that's a solid one. It's funny the staying power that guy had. I mean, he's lasted a long time in the NFL. I think he's lasted. What year was he drafted? 2012.
Man, I turned around and looked at his age. Like he's 32 or 31, 32. And,
that's another thing though. Will Pittsburgh sign some of those 30-plus guys? I know they showed some interest in the edge guys. Would they make that exception for a defensive lineman? I wonder is the question. 2013.
I would think on a close to a minimum, maybe they would. I mean, I don't think. I mean, you get over 2.5, $3 million. You get in that Melvin Ingram range and all like that. But I mean, at this point in the offseason, I mean, here we are, June the 1st now. OTAs around the league are well underway. Nick Williams still doesn't have a home. that guy's probably got 1 year left in him. Why not come back where you started and, try to make a run at that? Now, obviously, you could probably wait around until the start of season, see how injuries around the league goes, and maybe he puts a little bit more money in his pocket that way. But if any team thought he had was worth more than minimum at this point, I think he'd already be signed by now. But I mean, this is a guy. I mean, you go back to a couple years ago when he was with the Bears, man. You put some talent around that guy. I think you can use him in certain areas. Now, I don't think he's an every down guy, but I think he could definitely be a rotational guy, and definitely a guy that you use in as a pass rusher there. But that's really from a realistic standpoint, that's really the only name that I see. I understand people with the Larry Ogunjobis and the Ndamukong Suhs and all like that. But how much is that going to cost you to sign those guys?
The other name to mention in this book, I would be pricier, but Shelton Richardson. He's played up and down the lines, been in Cleveland, Minnesota, the Jets, obviously where he began his career. I don't know what exactly that monetary value would be, but somebody that I think could offer some pass rush, some one gap ability would be Shelton Richardson.
He is what, 30? He's 31 as well too, right?
Yes, he's 31.
And that's a foreman. That's a pedigree guy at least. What's his character? What did he have any character issues? Do you remember? Or has he been pretty clean?
Can't remember. I mean, obviously he's been in the league this long, so anything he might have had coming out is probably mostly moot at this point.
The good thing is, I think even looking at him, he hasn't missed. I think he missed some games. 2015. But other than that,
that's it. He's really healthy, really durable.
He's been a pretty durable guy overall there. So maybe that's a guy. But once again, you're not going to bring a guy like him in and pay him, more than $3 million per season.
What did he get last year in Minnesota? Last year, he got $3.6 million on a 1-year deal. Started 7 games, played in all 17. Rotational guy mostly. So you could probably bring him in for about $3 million, I'd say, this year.
All right. So that's another one that I think you could that would make sense and work.
I think it's also just important to recognize, because I've been asked so much about the outside guys, what free agent can they sign, what trade could they make? I'm focused on the guys who are on the roster right now, because this team historically has only ever kept 6 defensive linemen, and you got 6 guys right now, whether you're talking Hayward and Wormley and Alualu and Adams and Loudermilk and now Leal added to that mix. So primarily I'm focused on the guys who are currently on the roster, because even if you do add somebody, the majority of the snaps are coming from the other guys. And so I'm really focused on Chris Wormley in his second year, presumably now as a full-time starter. I thought overall he played well last year, even though the Steelers run defense was a mess. Loudermilk in year 2, what Leal can offer you as maybe a sub-package pass rusher. Run defense, I think, is going to be a big problem for him out of the gate. But in nickel packages on third down, can he offer something there to replace Tuitt bit by bit? I think that makes sense.
Odds are they're going to stand pat, period. But people insist that you throw out these names out here. I think you probably sign Nick Williams tomorrow for a minimum salary benefit deal and all like that. If you can, I'd do it, because you can never have too many bodies, because of attrition or whatever. And at least with a minimum salary benefit deal with Nick Williams, either he makes the club or he doesn't,
Right. Yeah, I'm fine with signing somebody. I don't want to say the 6 or the 6 because injuries struck, as Pittsburgh found out last year. But I'm just saying the focus needs to be primarily on the guys who are on the roster today, not the outsiders.
Sure, you got a 3rd-round draft pick in Leal, right? He's making the roster, barring him suffering an injury that lands him on IR. And no, people, you can't just stash people on IR if they don't have an injury. I'm sure we'll get some feed. Somebody send us an email on that. Either he's injured or he's not. And odds are good. Basically, if he's not injured, he's going to be on this 53. If Isaiah Loudermilk washes out after 1 season and does not make you 53, somebody got some explaining to do there.
Well, that guy's sitting at home right now has some explaining to do. Omar's going to have to call him up.
Right. You'd like to think that, that this guy is going to be a depth, a depth piece for you. So there's 2 out of 6 roster spots, right?
Of the 6 names I mentioned, I can't really see anybody having a high probability of being cut. Of course, an injury may change things, but those 6 guys, pretty good odds to make the roster. Adams, maybe you could argue Alu if he really hasn't bounced back, but those guys should all be there.
Sure. So if that's the case, then you're not going to spend, barring an injury cropping up before week 1, odds are you're not going to spend a lot of, if you do add another guy from the outside, you're not going to spend a lot of money on him.
Right. No, I agree. I don't think they would. So speaking of the financial aspect, give an update of the cap ramifications of Tuitt's retirement. I assume they're going to put him on the reserve retire list and not cut him, but you explain some of those mechanisms and just kind of the cap situation and ramifications of Tuitt's decision.
Yeah, I would be. In fact, the sheet for 6-1 just came out, and I'm not seeing Tuitt on it today. So anything that does happen with him now will indeed happen after June the 1st. I would assume that he just goes on a reserve retired list.
Okay, that's what I've been saying for a while. Yeah,
at this point too, and now we know for sure it'll happen after June 1st. That's another important aspect to all this as well too. So essentially, they're going to save $9.048 million, almost almost $9.049 million prior to roster displacement in cap space here by him going on the reserve retired list. Let's see, you subtract what 800 something thousand from that. That really gives you the kind of the net that you will save there. Overall, he'll have a dead money charge now in 2023 because of this being post June 1st. His dead money in 2023 will be $4.755 million. Welcome to 2023, Alex. It's the first dead money on the books for 2023 for the Pittsburgh Steelers there. His dead money charge this year is 4.925 and some change million. That now puts the Steelers' dead money amount for 2022 almost up to 31 million, 30.863 million and some change in dead money. Now, the savings and all, where this team is at real time as we are kind of recording this right now, assuming this all goes the way we think it will go with him being placed on the reserve retired list, 21.346, almost 21.347 million under the cap right now. And you say, oh man, 20 million, that's a lot to go shopping with there. Now remember, this team still got expenses that they got to make sure they plan for later as the offseason progresses there. If you want a realistic view of how much kind of money this team has to play with right now, it's around $5 or $6 million realistically. And that kind of assumes that Minkah Fitzpatrick gets a deal done later in the offseason, that his cap number, if his cap number goes down, well, there's maybe another couple million right there. We'll see what happens with a guy like Chris Boswell, right? Even if he gets an extension, that's not going to move the cap. That's not much to be concerned about. The only other really big question is what's going to happen with Deontay Johnson, because obviously if Deontay Johnson does get a new deal that averages, let's say, 20 million in new money, well, his cap charge that's currently on the books is going to go up, right? A pretty good amount there. But I think safely looking at what the Steelers have forthcoming in expenses and what they want to keep in reserves at the start of the season and practice squad and 52nd, 53rd player, yada, yada. I think they got about 5 or 6 million that they could do something with if they want to. Now, here's the other kind of fallout from this thing that's kind of important that not a lot of people will talk about, but you damn sure know I will. This might prevent the team from having to restructure the contract to TJ Watt later this summer. So, and especially if they do get a deal done with Minkah that ends up actually freeing up cap a couple of million with him, all this might result in them leaving TJ Watt's contract alone later this summer. And that'll be obviously a big, if there's any kind of positive byproduct from this whole Tuitt thing, that would be one of the things I think that you talk about in there. Well, a lot of things obviously can happen between now and by the time training camp gets rolling and all that kind of stuff there. But the first thing that really jumped into my mind Tuitt retiring and this being post June 1st is that it might prevent the team from having to restructure the contract of one TJ Watt.
Okay, that makes sense. I mean, is there a big incentive and reason to do it? I suppose if you want and sign somebody, then that may be a reason, but there is no compelling factor in doing that now, right?
I guess if you wanted to go hog wild with adding some players here with some higher cap numbers, I mean, like I said, once again, I think this team still with all what's coming on down the pike, still with two draft picks that need to be signed and all the things that you kind of plan for the rest of this offseason here. I mean, there's still like a $5 or $6 million cushion in there on top of everything, you know? So, unless you eat through that and unless there's look, it's a huge question mark with Deonte Johnson. That's obviously something that, we don't fully know the answer to right now. I mean, if you extend that guy and you extended him at $20 million new money average, his cap number is going to go up. So you have to kind of, would have to account for that.
Roughly how much could it go up if you assume he gets paid?
I don't know. I would think that his cap number would probably jump another $4 or $5 million. Really?
Okay, so it would eat up that space you have.
Yeah, so it'd eat up kind of that cushion that you have now. What's his cap number now? 2 point because of him getting that proven performance escalator there. He had a jump to. Hold on, just a minute here, and I'll tell you what it jumped to this off season here. It went to 2.79 million. Is his cap number, or it's a little bit higher than that because of the proration. His cap number is 3.073. His base went to 2.79 million as part of him obviously hitting the proven performance escalator those first 3 years. And that's not a new development. Obviously, we've known about that for a little since last season ended there. But I would speculate that if he got a new money average, a deal new money average of let's say around 20 million, that his cap charge would probably go up. I don't know, go up to about 5 to 7 million. Go up to about 7 million at max. I would think right around in there. I haven't drawn out the contract on that, but just knowing that what Minka's would probably look like and all. Minka obviously would be around 18 million new money average and all right there. So, and you would expect his cap number to drop a little bit from the 10 million that it is now. So it would essentially eat up that $5 million buffer that you have right now if they did extend Deontay Johnson, I think.
But with Tuitt, again, just such a good player, just such a rare athlete for his size and his frame and the combination of strength and quickness and the hips that he had. Just remarkable, the effort that he played with and the passion that he played with, and just made up a great duo with Cam Hayward. It's just a shame that his career is cut so short and that he didn't get to play as much as we would have liked to with Cam Hayward, given all the injuries he dealt with. But that 2020 season, man, Hayward, Tuitt, they were the best in football.
Yeah, look, and unfortunately, that's probably going to be kind of the further we get away from this. It's kind of going to kind of be Tuitt obviously will be known for missing the 2021 season due to primarily, you would think, the death of his brother, and then the other aspect of it is, man, he missed some games there throughout his career, 2019 specifically, because what was it, the torn biceps or triceps that he had there, and really only, what was it, just one season that he played all 16 games, I think, right?
Yeah, was that 2020?
His rookie season, I think.
Was that his rookie year? I played 15 in 2020. Played all 16 his rookie year, starting 4. He was kind of the last of the Steelers rookies that had to be rookies and sit on the bench. And he played behind Cam Thomas for his rookie season. And we're kind of wondering how in the world is Tuitt behind Cam Thomas. And that was kind of when I think it clicked for Pittsburgh to say, let's not be so stuck in our ways that we're playing worse talent ahead of the rookie. And so that was kind of the last of that philosophy. But then Tuitt, played well that sophomore year, and again, when healthy, he was fantastic.
Man, you remember back to that 2020 season, right? I mean, that guy in that hips and the way just unstoppable. A lot of fantastic football he played in 2020, and that's why you kept, or at least I did, and I know you did too, throughout this whole kind of unknown was, man, if they could get this guy back and he'd be, even 80% of that player he was in 2020, the Steelers will be cooking with gas up front, there. So, like this is a big loss. I mean, say what you will about this. This is a big loss, them not having Stephon Tuitt, I think, in 2022.
Sure. I mean, obviously, you didn't have him last year, but you were hopeful you would get him back this year, and that would have been a major boost. Really, the biggest acquisition you could have made this entire offseason was the return of Stephon Tuitt. So, not having that is certainly going to change some of the thoughts and landscape about how this roster, how this defensive line is going to look. Some other housekeeping on him, I suppose, this opens up a roster spot again, right? With Tuitt, whenever he does officially hit the reserve retired list, so that clears up a spot. I don't know if that means that a Travon Mason will get a flight right back to Pittsburgh or what. Travon Mason was released on Tuesday, bit of a surprise decision. And then Pittsburgh today worked out a bunch of pass rushers, ended up signing an old familiar face, Kozora Skipper, to what we assume is a one-year contract.
Yeah, that should be 1 year for the minimum for two credited seasons with him overall. And why don't you tell the people about the other three guys that they supposedly had in for workouts?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's a little less relevant now because I assume none of those guys are going to be signed unless, I mean, there's an open roster spot, but you imagine that's going to be a defensive lineman. But according to Jeremy Fowler, the team brought in for workouts today or yesterday Wyatt Ray, Trent Harris, and I should have looked up the pronunciation of the name, Afidi Odenigbo. Oh, I probably butchered that worse than I even thought I would in my head. Yeah, thank you for that. He was with the Vikings. Actually, a more interesting guy. He had probably the best resume of the three. With 7 sacks, I think, a couple years ago. Ray Harris had kind of been more journeyman that had just been trying to, catch on to a roster somewhere. But it looks like Kozora Skipper is going to be the guy instead.
Yeah, we'll see. Look, a guy that you're familiar with there, and he'll get one last chance here. He's been unemployed since early May here. The Steelers obviously know about him and him about them, and I hope he brings a big bucket of bubble gum for Danny Smith, because you're gonna have to make nice with him for sure over the next couple of months for sure. Look, you go back to that guy's rookie season and that preseason. Although it was just preseason, there was a lot to like during those preseason games there. And obviously, it looked like he did enough to make that week 1 roster, and he actually did make the initial 53. Only to lo and behold, due to kind of a roster shuffle there. I think the Steelers thought they were going to slide him to the practice squad. That didn't happen. The Giants claimed him off waivers. He lasted there until October later in the season, and then went to their practice squad. And then the Steelers got him back off of the Giants practice squad. And then he just, they signed him to a 2-year deal even, which, kind of surprised some people there. And it didn't stick though. He didn't make the roster, and he washed out, and then he lands with Tennessee and pretty much has been there, except for I think spent a couple of weeks last summer with the Atlanta Falcons there. So even though we've been hollering and crying for some depth at the outside linebacker position, they can do better. I think, they signed Jannard Avery earlier in the offseason. Now they've added back a guy in Kozora Skipper. You obviously got a couple of rookie undrafted free agents that we'll have to see what happens there. I don't have the warm and fuzzies all over yet. I don't think they've done enough to give me that, but at least you get a familiar name with him on a cheap, and we'll see if he's new and improved Kozora Skipper.
I certainly hope that means he's going to play some more in special teams than he did the first time. Remember, he barely played. They wouldn't put him on those units until the final preseason game when he did well, had a pair of tackles. But still, you just wonder if this team's going to use him more there, because Avery's not really a special teams guy. Tuska's occupied that role, but you do kind of wonder some backup edge rushers that don't seem to have a lot of special teams value. I think Skipper can do it. They just really, for whatever reason, didn't use him there the first time around. So I think he'll need to be playing well in those units to have a chance to stick.
Yeah, that's why I say better make sure you make nice with Danny, and he should know what's expected of him coming in this time around. It shouldn't be a shock. You're gonna have to be able to play some special teams units. That's for sure. And right. I don't think they're done there though, Alex. I mean, they needed to add they needed another body there, and I'm glad they got one. And we'll see where it goes from there. But I think they should keep looking. Is my thought on that.
Sure, it could be more of an end of summer, close to week one kind of thing where they make a move there. They may take these guys into camp and see who steps up and how that group looks from there. But we'll see. And then Travon Mason was an undrafted rookie out of Arizona, signed out of rookie minicamp on a tryout basis, and then caught the contract after that 3-day weekend. Again, I don't know if that was anticipation of the skipper move today or signing an edge rusher, but with Stephon Tuitt news coming in, maybe that means Mason comes right back.
I thought for sure it meant John Kaminsky was coming to Pittsburgh. Is what I thought. And he obviously got claimed off of waivers on when would have been Tuesday by the Detroit Lions. And even at that point, I'm thinking, okay, well, the Lions had the higher waiver claim. I'm not shocked that another team higher in the waiver order went after a guy in John Kaminsky there. Well, not only did they, it looked like 8 teams in total. However, the Steelers were not one of them, according to Field Yates. Looks like the Lions, the Commanders, the Colts, the Browns, the Texans, Cardinals, Vikings, and Bengals. And that's a funny way to spell Steelers in there.
Kevin Colbert, come back, please. We missed you. We missed the Colbert rules. This is the first really gut punch of the post-Colbert era.
Look, if you would have told me later on in the day yesterday that Field Yates would be letting us know all the teams that put in a waiver claim for him, I would have popped down a dead Ben Franklin that the Steelers would be on that list, and he wasn't. Mm-hmm. So because he, but anyway, that's spilt milk. No sense going forward with that. But it is a bit curious though that Mason's out the door, and maybe they, especially with Tuitt happening and all like that. I don't know. Maybe Mason will circle back. We'll see.
You think they're going to use that vacant spot on a defensive lineman of some caliber?
You would think,
you would
assume,
right? Just to have at least some of the bodies going into camp. But we'll see. We'll let you know. I'm sure the team will fill the spot by the end of the week, at the least. All right, Dave, anything else from today? There's some stuff we can probably save until Friday's show. And, of course, a team going through OTAs. Their last day of voluntary OTAs are Thursday. They'll be back at mandatory minicamp for 3 days starting next Tuesday. So some quotes and comments and stuff, but probably things we can save until the actual regular Friday show.
I guess we should hit on Deonte Johnson being present, at least on Tuesday. That I think when we my assumption, at least when we had the show the other day, was that he was not going to be around this week. And that's pretty much what the media's assumption was going to be. But he was at least on Tuesday. Now, have we heard officially whether or not he was or wasn't at Wednesday? I think they were trying to send up smoke signals maybe that he wasn't there on Wednesday, but I don't know for sure. But he was there on Tuesday, and he is not planning on talking to the media until mandatory minicamp. And I have no problem with that. I think that's smart, really, because he's just going to get peppered with questions, and maybe he'll get peppered with those same questions a little bit less. A tad bit less mandatory minicamp there, but hey, he showed up, and even if it was for one practice this week, at least he showed up.
Yeah, to me, not nearly the story some of the media made it out to be. As long as he's there for mandatory minicamp, which it sounds like he will be, then that's all well and good. But yeah, I'm sure that question interview session is something he can do without whenever it happens next week.
Do you think? Do we know if he was there or not on Wednesday? Have you seen anything?
I don't. Like you said, the implication seemed to be he was not. But some of these Steelers rules are so. What's the word I want to use here to be tasteful? Just
you don't have to be tasteful on my account.
No, not on your account. They're just a little
archaic.
I don't know. They're just there's restrictions on saying guys who are and aren't there and things like that. So some games get played. It just all seem a little silly, but that's just one man's opinion. Yeah,
you get the same information. It's just it doesn't come out in you have to play games. I guess that way there. What'd you think about your boy Danny Smith flexing in the locker room?
He's looking good. Danny Smith still got it, man. Again, he's the only only Pittsburgh's the only team that has just one special teams coach that holds the title special teams coach. Every other team has at least an assistant in title. Now he gets help from Blaine and Denzel Martin, guys like that. But Danny Smith, that guy does it all.
Old man strength. I bet he's the kind of guy when you go to shake his hand, you know you shaking his hand.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
for
I
sure.
bet he gives you that old man death grip there. So I think we got most of it there. We won't take any questions in this podcast. We just want to make this kind of an emergency podcast to cover the Tuitt thing and talk about Tuzar's skipper and all that stuff. So you got any questions stemming from maybe anything that we talked about today or want to get them in for the Friday show, you can send those to theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. You can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Once again, email the show theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. Alex and I, barring anything other surprises happening or breaking news or whatnot, we will be back on Friday. So as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.